Just moments ago, in the heart of New York, under the gaze of global leaders, Vasily Nebenzia unleashed a verbal storm that left Vladimir Zelensky reeling, his usual bravado shattered like fragile glass. This unfolded in the stern halls of the United Nations Security Council, where the world's eyes fixed on the drama unfolding live. Zelensky scrambled to defend his stance, but Nebenzia's words cut like icy blades, precise, unyielding, and forever etched in history. What incendiary bombshells did the Russian envoy drop that stunned even Western allies into hushed silence? Stick around to uncover the seismic fallout that could redefine international power games. Why did Zelensky's comeback feel like a desperate gasp, and could this historic clash ignite a new era of geopolitical earthquakes? In that charged space, the air hung heavy, filtered through centuries of diplomatic intrigue, dry, metallic, crackling with unspoken expectations. Cameras whirred silently, their silent sentry, capturing every flexed muscle and averted gaze. The atmosphere pulsed with tangible voltage, where even a stray cough might shatter the fragile equilibrium. Nebenzia entered, a figure etched as a landmark on the world map, standing slightly above average height with the ease of one carrying unindexed burdens, lives shaped not by fiction, but by relentless realities. His face remained stoic, unreadable, framed by piercing dark eyes that flickered like embedded coals, neither blazing nor extinguished, merely observing with detached intensity. His graphite-toned suit draped like a scholar's robe, tailored for intellectual skirmishes under flashing lights. His movements flowed deliberately, an old-guard tactician who drew focus to truths rather than theatrics. As he introduced himself, his tone echoed the gentle rustle of ancient tomes, piercing the library like hush without fanfare. He paused, eyes locking on Zelensky, a youthful visage, once an actor, now entrenched in presidential pretenses, his skin pale as overbrewed coffee. Tension coiled in the room, not outright terror, but a brewing storm. Zelensky leaned into his role, his sleek attire clinging like a second skin against potential threats, concealed readiness in his tailored pockets. Prepared beneath the surface, he embodied confidence, speech well rehearsed, ready to assail. The chairman signaled, and proceedings commenced. Translators' murmurs faded into a soft hum, microphones amplifying every syllable with electric anticipation. Zelensky began boldly. "Esteemed delegates," he intoned, his voice steady as rolling theater cues. "I am grateful for this platform to address the plight of nations battling not just for soil, but for their rightful stake in humanity's tapestry." His delivery was fluid, animated by grand gestures underscoring sovereignty. Observers drank in his fervor, cameras lingering on expressive brows and sweeping arms. "My homeland made its choice," he pressed on. "We embraced liberty, the European path, progressive ideals, and in return, faced missile barrages, economic strangulation, endless coercion to submit." Pausing for emphasis, he spotlighted Russia. "Moscow clings to relics of bygone eras. It shuns true negotiation, craving only surrender." Murmurs rippled faintly, some weary, others perplexed. Yet Nebenzia held firm, poised as a sentinel. Zelensky's pitch escalated. "We seek no favors. We require backing, arms, funds, acknowledgement. We defend liberty, we're no invaders, but Europe's bulwark against tyranny." As his oratory peaked, a profound quiet descended, heavier than before, cameras hovering like vultures, the chair yielding the floor to Nebenzia. He rose slowly, shuffling papers momentarily, hands steadying on the dais before claiming the microphone with effortless grace. "President Zelensky," he addressed coolly, tone as measured as a lecturer dissecting global riddles. "You've extolled freedom intensely, yet its essence eludes perpetual pleading. You claim no requests, but glance at the facts: billions in aid. Armored vehicles arriving. Missiles stockpiled. Military drills ongoing. And still, you stand here, palms outstretched, justifications flowing." No malice laced his voice, it resonated with academic detachment, probing the underbelly of geopolitics. "You label Russia outdated, fair assessment. Yet history is an error, its cornerstone. Your plight rings loud, amplified harshly, but amplification alone? Merely echo. We propose discourse, you peddle illusions. The loftier the mirage, the harsher the awakening." Zelensky stirred, turmoil flashing in his eyes, yet he held his tongue, comprehension dawning. Nebenzia continued, unflinching, "While you refrain from inquiry, the timorous diplomat retreats. You grasp this tug of war. Today it's 100 billion in pledges. Tomorrow doubles. No one cautions to cease, to ponder gains. What victories greet you? He met Zelensky's stare directly. Query beckons. But premature claims blind. The globe orbits your turmoil not from indifference, but from glimpsing futility. A stinging reproach, diplomatically veiled like bullets wrapped in velvet. Yet the audience stilled. Zelensky himself, even power brokers in the distance, felt the weight. The hush lingered beyond custom, a hush of awe mingled with unease for authentic statesmanship, no turmoil, just inevitability. As microphones deactivated, figures resettled in their seats. The chamber remained eerily still, no outbursts, no clatter. Yet beneath the calm, an undercurrent surged, intangible as rising mist from parchment, unseen but pervasive. Leaders' gazes drifted from monitors. Zelensky stared into nothingness. When the mic reignited, his reply emerged subdued, though edged with steel. Providence isn't deceived, he countered. You're a seasoned envoy, I honor your poise. Yet specifics slip you. We demand, not implore. For on borders etched, ours etched, we stake not mere territory, our being, our journey. He trailed off in fragments, indicating demarcations, Ukraine's contours, scarred by forced redraws, where ours collided with imposed divides, the land scarred by ancient shifts, defenses crumbling as seekers of stability clashed with architects of division. Recall, he urged, fighting rising exasperation, we erect nothing frivolous, merely seek parity, yet I'll etch this in memory. We ignited no blaze, Moscow wrecked once. Then obstructs survivors scavenging amid debris. Fury reignited him anew, you preach talks, yet true parley involves mutual concessions, not unilateral capitulations. We forge states, you dismantle adversaries. Reactions varied, some indifference, some unease, yet Nebenzia showed no outburst. Pauses stretched again. Then rhetoric shifted to him. Without notes, unshaken, he pivoted, esteemed delegates, the order you champion? It's haunted Ukraine since Belgrade's bombardment. Since Libya's partitioning. Since refugee tides fleeing pretense of self-rule. That order dissolved eons ago, stability phrase not from Russian machinations, but systemic exhaustion. His timbre warmed slightly, verging personal. You assert construction all peoples long to build. But crux lies in who steers the blueprint. Today's Ukraine? Not agent, but pawn fed perpetually, directed ceaselessly, overseen relentlessly. True autonomy awakens thus. Silence impregnable. You claim inception not yours, perhaps. Theater commences not with performer, but prologue. If prologue echoes cycles, fault lies not in troupe, but director. The analogy sliced subtly, provocatively yet delivered with diplomatic softness, almost wry. Zelensky smirked invisibly, pressing onward, we're performers, for spectatorship palled when homelands burned. Yes, I am an artist, erstwhile diplomat by chance. Thus I perceive your pageant dwindling audiences. World scorn masks atop war staffs. He gestured expansively to the assembly, awaken, all of you, the architects of. What hidden twist will Nebenzia reveal next that flips the narrative? Exposing cracks in Zelensky's armor and questioning if Ukraine's independence is puppet strings veiled as sovereignty? Can this clash truly herald the dawn of negotiated peace, or will it bury illusions forever, leaving global footing shattered? Who wins when truth's weight crushes theatrical facades? In the shadow of mounting tension, Zelensky grasped the microphone, his words shifting from official defiance to a personal plea. No papers fluttered at his side now. He addressed the hall directly, vowing not to claim Russia's moral high ground, yet calling out the cycle of blame and the void left by Western assurances. Picture this, the air thick with unspoken alliances, the metallic tang of anticipation clinging to every breath, a chamber where whispers echo like distant thunder. Gentlemen, Zelensky pressed on, his voice slicing through the stillness, you accuse us of ruin, yet what have you forged beyond hollow banners? Where are your mediators except in judgment? Nebenzia rose, his posture unwavering, eyes scanning faces etched with doubt. Would the truth sting more than arrows? The diplomat's reply hung in the balance, a revelation that could shatter illusions and expose the puppet strings. Rightfully confronted, yet not by mere words, but by relentless cadence, Zelensky proclaimed, you claim, gentlemen, in abundance, that we are a victim, entrenched in war's brutal object, a fallen figure under your gaze, your coercion, your decrees. But we rebuke that role. Through us pulses a demarcation, not merely a front line, but a pivotal choice. He paused, breaths shallow in the stifling heat of scrutiny, then surged forth with fervor. Russia craves pacification, not parity, for genuine peace demands balance, while your imposed order silences the feeble and empowers the mighty. We refuse to be muzzled. You resent our defiance. Emotions flickered briefly but stayed caged. Could this be the moment history pivots on a single voice? Sensations amplified, the faint rustle of fabrics, the acrid scent of polished wood, before Zelensky's final barb landed. We seek backing, yes, he declared, yet not armament's edge. We stand as a barrier, our collapse means Warsaw trembles, Berlin falters. Not by design as symbols, but fate carves us thus. Silence enveloped him, laden with provocation, a gauntlet cast. Yet, in that charged void, Nebencha's gaze pierced Zelensky as both adversary and enigma. Could respect bridge this chasm? The diplomat's tone softened, a velvet sheath over steel. President Zelensky, he murmured, your rhetoric captivates, but allure masks deceit. Aspiring to safeguard as a bastion? The crux lies in your maneuvering by unseen hands. You fancy autonomy, yet ensnared in strife scripted not in Kiev's halls, nor Moscow's, but Washington's strategies, Brussels' edicts, London's ledgers, arenas where you're barred from the table, exiled to budget footnotes. Gasps rippled subtly, the hall afloat on waves of revelation, not outrage. At this juncture, a staggering twist emerged. Zelensky, ever the performer, believed himself directing the drama, blind to being cast as the supporting shadow. Could the real architects lurk beyond Europe's borders? Nebencha's words dripped irony. You proclaim yourselves buffers, adequate perhaps, yet have you pondered between whom and what? Imagined guardians twixt Russia and Europe? Permit me to unveil the stark divide, twixt your aspirations and your patron's reigns, the dreamer you envision versus the puppet you become. He halted. Intensity building, the pause heavy like a storm's eye. Foreign delegates shifted uneasily, their expressions betraying cracks in unified fronts. Would this exposure ignite outraged dissent or force a reckoning? The hall's pulse raced, waiting for the storm's next gust. In the heated exchange, Zelensky pushed back fiercely, claiming Ukraine as a vital buffer not just between Russia and Europe, but between its own allies and their illusions of self-image. His words slipped into a rare mistake, hanging in the tense air like an unspoken regret. What if the real architect of this chaos isn't the one you think? Slowly, Nebencha turned his gaze across the vast hall, the polished wooden panels echoing faintly with the rustle of papers and held breaths. The air felt thick, heavy with the scent of polished oak and distant coffee from the delegates' breaks, sharp, almost metallic under the bright overhead lights. I won't claim Russia is flawless in every way, pause for effect. I've never said that. But hear this, Russia has endured as an unyielding guardian in this endless standoff. You point fingers at us for every ruin, every shattered dream, but tell me, what have you truly constructed in its place? The question sliced through the room like a winter gust, cold and unrelenting. Where are your real solutions, beyond empty slogans that fade like morning mist? Where are your true envoys, aside from those who only hurl blame? Where are your bold visions, if not drowned in endless pleas? Zelensky leaned back sharply in his seat, the leather creaking under the pressure. His expression hardened, features drawing tight like a mask pulled too snug, eyes narrowing, jaw set against the onslaught. He halted his forward momentum, no longer advancing his arguments with that fiery rhythm. Now, he simply absorbed it, the weight pressing on his shoulders like an invisible load. If we offer aid, accept it, but speak plainly. Don't pretend you've forged your path alone, day after day, knocking at doors with outstretched hands. Picture this, a man builds his home, brick by brick. Yet that home stands on borrowed ground, with loans piling up, guards at every entrance, weapons hidden in drawers, keys clutched too tightly. The image landed simply, almost childlike in its clarity, yet it pierced the debate's core with brutal honesty. Why? Because metaphors like this strip away the layers, exposing raw truth. It wasn't about shattering illusions easily, the diplomat had ended the charade right there. He claimed the upper hand, steady and unyielding. And if you crave true liberty, as you proclaim, then begin by rejecting this false independence. Those you vilify are merely holding up a mirror, reflecting your own choices back at you. Zelensky fell silent, a storm brewing beneath the surface, resentment flickering in his eyes like distant lightning. Then, as if recalling his stage-honed instincts, he surged forward. You dissect everything, you explain, you judge us from your pedestal, but let me say this, we are no mere experiment. We are a nation, one that would rather crumble on its own terms than bend. And as long as we have breath, we'll speak our truth. He paused, drawing in the room's charged air, building to what he believed would be his final strike. You fear the world hearing us clearly, because a truth shouted boldly needs no arsenal to back it. It stands alone. Yet in that instant, the hall's energy shifted, the grand ceiling light seemed to dim slightly, casting longer shadows. The dialogue's first wave had crested, fading not with a crash but a lingering echo. Zelensky, seasoned in spotlights and scrutiny, appeared drained, like someone weary of thunderous rhetoric yet aware of the inevitable fallout awaiting the stage. Mr. Zelensky, his tone softened, almost fatigued. I'm not daunted by your convictions. What troubles me are the missteps along the way. Nebenzia eased back to his seat, the faint scrape of his chair against the floor breaking the hush. That silence now stretched beyond mere protocol, a profound presence, alive with unspoken judgments. It lingered, watchful, as if the room itself held its breath. Imagine the charged atmosphere of the United Nations General Assembly in New York, under the watchful eyes of global leaders. Just moments ago, Russian diplomat Vasily Nebenzia delivered a devastating critique to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, forcing the world to confront uncomfortable truths. Amidst the ornate halls of international diplomacy, away from television cameras, Zelensky fought back, but Nebenzia's sharp words hit like a calculated strike, cool, unyielding, and profound. What exactly did the diplomat utter that shocked Western delegates? How did it expose the fragility of Ukraine's position? Stick around to uncover why this exchange is being hailed as a historic turning point. Did Zelensky crumble under the pressure, or did Nebenzia's barbs reveal a deeper geopolitical game? The air in the assembly hall was thick with anticipation, filtered through layers of protocol and unspoken tensions, carrying the faint metallic tang of unresolved conflicts. Vasily Nebenzia paused, his dark eyes scanning the room with quiet intensity, while diplomats exchanged knowing glances and faint nods, feeling the subtle shift in the energy like a whisper of wind before a storm. The pause lingered, heavy and deliberate, as Zelensky gathered himself again. You keep claiming the world's focus is on Ukraine, he pressed on, his voice rising, the harsh echo bouncing off the polished marble walls under the glare of bright chandeliers. But let's face it, that world didn't emerge from us. It arose from sheer force, imperialism's legacy, the push to redraw old maps for new gains. Geography bows to no sanctions. It demands reality. At that, Zelensky's tone softened, almost paternal, weary like a father who has waited too long for a wayward son to reform, yet unwilling to release the grip entirely. You call us outdated thinkers. Perhaps. But we'd rather rebuild bridges than burn them down. What if I told you this diplomatic duel wasn't just words on paper, but a seismic shift exposing hidden strings pulling at global puppets? Could Nebenzia's calm facade mask a truth too raw for Western ears to swallow, humiliating a president laid bare in front of the world? Zelensky fought harder, his words cutting through the stillness like a blade through satin fabric, the faint rustle of papers in trembling hands adding to the tension. What daring provocation might Nebenzia unleash next, twisting the script in a way that rattles the very foundations of power alliances? The world craves honesty, and we're speaking it, even if our voice trembles with fear, Zelensky declared, locking eyes with the Russian representative, the cold sweat beating on brows palpable in the oppressive heat of the chamber. And yes, it might take ages to drag your empire into the light of truth, but each of us here will demand answers, not for ourselves, but for those silenced, for the devastated lives scattered like debris after a hurricane, for those fed up with empty spectacles. We'll push for life itself. You only chase victory at any cost. That line illuminated the room like a sudden spotlight piercing a fog-shrouded stage, not because the crowd erupted immediately, it gave them space to absorb. The muffled murmurs rippling like distant thunder until Zakharochenko calmed, betraying no emotion. Only then did the Russian diplomat step forward, papers clutched but unread, his presence commanding, the soft shuffle of shoes on the carpet underscoring his deliberate advance. He paused, listing the names as if conjuring allies. Vladimir Alexandrovich, he addressed formally, you just spoke of a voice that haunts you. I hear it too: fear, anxiety, rage, the raw edge of disillusionment. You claim no one's ordering you around. He leaned in, altering his stance to pivot the gaze, the sharp intake of breaths from the audience breaking the symphony of silenced flags. You forget dependency isn't always a barked command. It lurks in the fine print of deals, the fleeting commitments that vanish when you grow inconvenient. You cling not to freedom, but to a facade, hovering in limbo as long as that image serves. Your voice might dim when plays change, leaving you discarded mid-act, stripped of armies, industries, or the faith of generations who once believed the myth. He let that hang, a pregnant pause thick with the scent of brewing coffee and underlying panic. You pick allies, he continued, but survey the globe, your so-called partners lurk thousands of miles away, while we're right next door. We won't vanish. Not us from you, not you from us. You can't erase us. Could the diplomat's unflinching gaze, steady as a surgeon's scalpel, carve open a truth that humiliates Zelensky beyond repair, revealing an empire's shadow games in vivid relief? What unforeseen revelation did Nebensia hold? Poised to flip the entire narrative like a hidden director's cut, challenging who truly controls the chaos? You speak of building, Nebensia countered, his words flowing closer, almost intimate, weaving a tapestry of conspiracy for every listener, the faint creak of chairs under shifting weight emphasizing the unease. Every nation wants to construct something lasting. But the crux isn't the vision, it's who orchestrates it. Today, Ukraine isn't a player, it's a pawn, manipulated by endless funding, terms that crumble, directives from afar. Genuine sovereignty looks different. He paused, letting the echo fade before bridging to a twist. Theater doesn't kick off with the actors, it begins with the script. If that script echoes recycled tragedies from bygone eras, the fault's not in the performers, but the unseen hand directing the show. This analogy pierced dangerously, provocatively, yet delivered with diplomatic panache, laced with ironic edge. Zelensky smirked faintly, catching the jab, refusing to yield, energy surging anew. We've been cast as actors because no one wanted mere seats when the homeland was ablaze. True, I was an actor once, hesitant to become a diplomat, but perhaps that's what lets me see your prolonged charade has lost its audience. The globe no longer buys the illusion sold by another baton-brandishing beau. He gestured openly to the hall, voices rising. Could this revelation, sharper than a double-edged blade, humiliate the puppet masters in their own arena, exposing the farce of forced alliances? Keep listening, Nebensia's final volley might shatter illusions you never knew you held. Pulling the curtain on a global masquerade that's lasted far too long. In the previous part, Vasily Nebensia, the unflinching Russian diplomat, confronted Zelensky's narrative head-on at the United Nations, exposing the raw fears behind Ukraine's defiance. He warned that ignoring historical truths led only to isolation, urging recognition of shared Soviet legacies. But now, an unexpected twist unfolds. What if the real battle wasn't about politics, but a hidden betrayal that rewrote Ukraine's past? Can you imagine a hall where air hangs heavy with the scent of polished wood in anticipation, like soldiers holding their breath before a storm? Sounds of shuffling feet echo softly, a reminder that every word here carries the weight of nations. Zelensky, his suit clinging like a second skin in the tension, froze. He understood the spotlight was shifting. His hands gripped the podium's cool edge, veins pulsing against the smooth mahogany. But Nebensia's voice sliced through, calm and unyielding, not yelling, but etching truths into the atmosphere. Why do you pretend history is just a store? Nebensia asked, his tone like a scalpel on fabric, precise and relentless. No fury in his eyes, just a cold clarity that made observers squirm. You stand in the shadow of the Second World War. The Ukrainian flag wasn't born anew, it waved on the Eastern Front. Our victory was joint, forged in blood. If you erase that, claiming your story starts in 1991. Well, that's a lie. Convenient? Perhaps. But lies from within are the most dangerous. Zelensky's pulse quickened, a bead of sweat trickled down his temple, salty and unnoticed. The room's hum faded, replaced by his ragged breath. You talk of thinking, he shot back, voice brittle. But translating truths doesn't mean rewriting them. It means facing them, humans to humans. Skip that? You'll wander lost in a desert, no compass in sight. Nebensia raised a hand, sketching an island in the air, Eiffel Tower silhouette. No, Baikonur Cosmodrome, needle sharp against the sky. History isn't an Instagram feed, he said, vowels rolling like distant thunder. No filters to swipe away. It has brilliance and jealousy, the dark glory that shapes us. You label Russia the past's relic. I say, the past isn't sin, it's our archive, our identity. Want a real nation? Live with it. Don't retouch. A pause hung, electric, as whispers rustled like leaves in wind. Zelensky gritted his teeth, his nails scratched the podium's grain, pain grounding him. Then Nebensia leaned in, words hushed but venomous. You don't have to love the Soviet era. But you must remember who built you, who shared bread, stood guard, died in trenches, marched together to victory. Who raised that black spire? Chernobyl, from triumph turned trial, symbol of pioneering turned poison. His gaze locked on Zelensky. I see. You can airbrush a diplomat, strip words from walls, scrub roots from architecture. But shared blood? That's in our genes, songs, children's tales. Even the language you speak now, it binds us. Silence enveloped them, thick as fog, choking emotion. Zelensky didn't flinch. Arguments here don't pierce, they sink deep, where facts bleed into soul. No rebuttal stirred, just the gnawing dread that one truth, unearthed wrongly, could shatter the fragile peace. What secret alliance does Zelensky hide from his own people? And could Nebensia's calm revelation be the key to an unseen surrender? Watch as alliances crack in the next heartbeat, exposing origins that no power can bury. Imagine a tense standoff in the heart of New York, under the watchful eyes of global leaders at the United Nations. Just minutes ago, Vasily Nebensia unleashed a diplomatic storm that left Vladimir Zelensky reeling, his eyes dropping in humiliation. This unfolded in the sterile halls of the Security Council Assembly, far from the prying lenses of television cameras. Zelensky fought to defend himself, but Nebensia's words cut like a frozen blade, sharp, relentless, unyielding. What precise phrases did the Russian envoy deploy? And why did even Western delegates conceal their shock? Stick around till the end, and you'll see why this exchange is hailed as a historic turning point. Share your reactions below, and let us know which city you're tuning in from. In the previous segment, the debate escalated wildly. Nebensia hammered home Russia's readiness for talks, but Zelensky retaliated by shifting to personal histories, accusing Russia of forgetting its own dark chapters. Silence stretched like a mirror's shadow, heavy with unspoken truths. Zelensky remained frozen, aware that the clash had ventured into territory where arguments ricochet like bullets, not facts, but raw emotions, where every word hung on the edge of revelation. Now, picture this shocking twist. Did you know that Zelensky, once a comedian turned president, was dared to invoke his nation's real blood-soaked past back at Nebensia, shattering the diplomat's famed composure? It wasn't just rhetoric, it was a psychological assault that left the room gasping. As the air thickened with unspoken accusations, Nebensia's voice shifted. Adopting a metallic edge, not aggressive, but resolute, like steel forged in urgent decisions. He discarded his notes, shedding allegories for direct confrontation. Gentlemen, he declared, his tone slicing through the tension. You hit close to home on the stories of our children. Even in the language we're using now, the silence elongates like a mirror's grim reflection. Zelensky didn't flinch, sensing the argument's depth, where debates soar beyond logic, into leaps of faith, dependent not on who speaks first, but on how profoundly one delves into personal histories and national confessions. Suddenly, a memory flashed through the hall, a haunting flashback to 2008, the acrid stench of gunpowder lingering in Georgia's valleys, the rumble of tank treads vibrating under boots, the crack of bullets piercing the fog of false freedom. Sensory echoes, cold metal against sweat-drenched palms, the bitter taste of adrenaline in dry throats, distant cries of families torn by invasion. Nebensia absorbed it, his words turning personal, laced with an undercurrent of threat. You are correct, Vasily Alexeyevich, he acknowledged slowly, almost tenderly, raising his voice just enough. History isn't erased by a button, it's an unyielding fact. But let me pose one question. You insist we must remember, yet do you recall how the Georgian army was armed? How tanks amassed, letting foes advance unchallenged, snuffing out freedoms under bombardment? He stepped toward the rostrum, voice firm. To recall is our duty, and if we're obligated to dredge up the past, you too must confront it, not cherry-picking Gagarin's triumphs or Victory Day glories, but the shadows that stain your moral foundation. Gaze upon this very rostrum, it's built on our shared, brutal history. We don't flee from it, we name it plainly, not with your chosen labels, but by its true, raw essence. Without facing this, we'll never align, and if we can't, Ukraine will remain a mere project, manipulated from afar. His voice softened to a whisper yet echoed with profound clarity, each syllable rippling through the chamber like a stone dropped in still water. But it carried weight, impassioned yet restrained. If you truly desire we stop deceiving ourselves, don't impede us. Don't lecture us on our identities, we grasp that. Now, we yearn to discover who we can become. The tension peaked as two representatives from the West rose, not staunch allies, not outright foes, just individuals compelled by history's weight to engage in dialogue about a past too vast and painful to ignore. Time in the hall warped, no longer flowing linearly, but swirling in dense eddies, mirroring the chaotic rhythm of unfolding world events. Exchanges transformed from routine protocol into a sacred ritual, as if two ancient guardians from opposing epochs wrestled for the soul of collective memory. And who would claim the upper hand in this perilous dance? Imagine the global stage of the United Nations, where Vasily Nebezhny calmly dissected Zelensky's arguments, exposing Ukraine's reliance on endless billions of dollars and drawing metaphors about leadership and reality. The air hung thick with unspoken tensions, as Western delegates exchanged furtive glances, shocked by the verbal precision. Tension mounted, silence stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. But what if I revealed that Zelensky's dramatic plea for independence masked a deeper trap? A gauntlet thrown, demanding respect not just for choices, but for emotions that now threaten to unravel the fabric of diplomacy itself. What shocking secret lies in the ashes of forgotten alliances? The world watched as Nebezhny wove honesty into every strike, proving victory demands more than thanks, it craves truth. Without it, survival crumbles. 275 characters. In the hushed chamber, scents of polished wood and faint ozone from lighting rigs mingled with the sharp tension. Nebezhny's voice, steady as a heartbeat, echoed softly. He gazed at the assembly, eyes sharp beneath furrowed brows. Today, you speak, we reject dictation. Dictation forces forgetting, sometimes remembering. His fingers traced faint impressions on the desk's cool surface, pausing deliberately. We don't erect monuments. We safeguard memories. A subtle creak of chairs as delegates shifted. Nebezhny's tone deepened, like distant thunder. We don't surrender arms, but we claim the right to discard them when buried beneath floors, those bronze idols, those engineered bridges. His lips pressed slightly, then released. Yes. Building identity is human. Yet, you can't construct on rotting foundations. Such edifices collapse before completion. The room pulsed with unspoken fear, the tactile rasp of fabric as suits brushed against seats. Silence gripped tighter. Nebezhny paused, a mere breath. Desire autonomy? Embrace maturity. Mature souls preserve old albums, they don't shatter them. His gaze held Zelensky's, not stormy, but probing. That's your origin, or you dissolve into nothing. He stepped back, the arena froze. Yet, Zelensky rose again, voice gaining edge. Beneath the lenses, his skin prickled with sweat's subtle sheen. Vasily Alexeyevich. Unexpected calm in his start. I listen. I share parts of your tale. But here's the crux, you demand past reverence. We insist on honoring our choices. Hands lifted, not pompously, but encompassing. Feel how we live, not scripted words, not Moscow archives. Our people's pulse dictates. The translation buzzed low in the background, like a persistent whisper. Air felt heavier, laced with charged ions. Behold the world, transformed. Victories shared, interpretations blurred. Not gifts, evolution. His words hung, a rhetorical sting. Can foundations truly shatter without acknowledging change? Twist, what if this evolution revealed Zelensky's comedic roots as the first crack in his presidential armor, a role where lines blur between farce and tragedy? Shockingly, Nebezhny's gaze sharpened, ready to unveil how ancient dialogues mirror today's impasses, forcing a reckoning. He leaned in, voice cutting through the din. Will the diplomat's next volley break the illusion of control, or will Zelensky find an echo of solidarity in the silent stares? The mic hummed faintly, anticipation coiling like smoke, and what if the real weapon isn't words, but the deafening hush between them? Imagine this. Just moments ago, in the heart of New York, under the gaze of world leaders, Vasily Nebezhny's words shattered Vladimir Zelensky, forcing him to avert his eyes. It unfolded in the Soviet security hall, no TV broadcast captures it. At least, not yet. Zelensky tried to defend himself, but Nebezhny's phrase rang out like a cold verdict. Ice cold. And always precise. What did the Russian representative say? Why did even Western delegates hide their shock? Listen until the end, and you'll see why this is called historic. In the summary, Zelensky spoke at the assembly, prepared and confident, accusing Russia of past obsessions and demanding aid. Tone metallic in the air, anticipation thick like fog. Nebenzia, dignified and factual, rose, graphite suit, eyes like dark lamps. He countered, Ukraine begs again, after billions in aid? You're dreaming of capitulation? Russia offers talks. Zelensky demanded, claimed Russia destroys while Ukraine builds. Nebenzia replied, the world you talk of crumbled in Belgrade, Libya, elsewhere. Fatigue in the system. Ukraine is an object, not subject. Theater begins with the director, not the actor. Zelensky, once an artist president, senses the audience fading. Now, continuing. In the grand hall, Vasily Alexeyevich Nebenzia stood. His hand rose, not for drama, but to point at everything. Look at the world. It changed. Victory became shared. Interpretations faded. Not a gift. Evolution. That's how views shift. What pulls us? The air hummed with unspoken tension, scent of aged wood and polished metal. Eyes darted, could you feel the sweat on brows? Hearts pounding like distant drums? No call here. A request. Not just war. Sacrifice. Sacrifice for the motherland. For bread. For the land where people lived. For your village, not left to the dogs. For your language, not vanished. For your kin. Written in Moscow archives, but felt by our people. He raised his hand again, gesturing outward. The hall reflected everyone. Who prayed? Who listened? Who remembered their own? Who wondered how it started? Easy to see now. Zelensky met his gaze as equal. Not president. Not opponent. Man to man, paths crossing on shared ground. Both fighters. Silence erupted, not weapon, but transformation. Fragile honesty. When the room's temperature hit 17 degrees, heat lingered? It waited. Conversation brewing from past's soft curves and present's sharp edges. Reaching toward a nation's core, history, honest as bone. Discussion shifted, everyone poised, yet none dared first. Great patriotic war. Nerves taut, serious not from ignorance, but sacredness. Every inch a temple. Neither spoke first, voices softer, like crossing prayer paths. Do you feel it, the shift in atmosphere? Air heavy with memory's musk, silence crackling like dry leaves underfoot. Nebenzia urged, allow us, step from politics, 5 minutes. Just step. Topic where spirit resides. Truly unites as people, man and woman. That time? Great Fatherland War. He glanced down, slow. Eyes tracing floor's cool veneer, tracing veins of history buried deep. And in that glance, enigmas stirred. A hush fell deeper, like a velvet shroud. The scent of anticipation, mingled with faint cologne from suits. Echoed questions unspoken. What truths hide here? Nebenzia gazed at Zelensky, truly seeing him. No masks. Just human souls, entangled in fate's web. But tensions mounted, did Zelensky's expression flicker, betraying a storm inside? Or was it Nebenzia's gaze, piercing like winter wind, that chilled the room to 17 degrees once more? Suddenly, the diplomat leaned in closer, his voice a whisper's edge, promising revelations that could unravel it all. Will Zelensky hold fast, or crumble under history's weight? Stay tuned, the silence thickens, secrets teetering on the brink. What if this glance unearths a truth neither expected? In the grand halls of international diplomacy, where every word echoes like a thunderclap on fragile glass, Vasily Nebenzia, the steady Russian envoy, unleashed a verbal storm on Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. This wasn't mere debate, it was a clash of wills, leaving world leaders stunned. Picture the chill of anticipation hanging in the air, metallic and unyielding, as Nebenzia's pointed remarks sliced through pretense. What cold truths did he utter? And why did even Western allies squirm in silence? The chamber pulsed with tense energy. Cameras whirred softly, capturing every flicker. The translator's murmurs blended into the background hum, a subtle undercurrent of unease. Zelensky stood tall, his voice smooth, pleading for freedom against what he called an aggressor. Russia, he claimed, offered only threats, no dialogue, just demands for surrender. His words dripped conviction, amplified by the weight of global eyes. But Nebensia rose calmly, his gaze like polished steel. Paper rustled faintly in his grip. He addressed Zelensky directly, tone even, almost paternal. "You've spoken of freedom," he said, "yet your demands keep growing. Billions in aid, tanks, missiles, $10 billion alone. And still, you return, stretching out excuses. Is this true liberation, or endless dependency?" The hall breathed shallowly, sweat beading on brows despite the cool recycled air. Zelensky's eyes narrowed, a spark igniting. He retorted sharply, demanding recognition, weapons, not talk. "We shield Europe," he declared. "Russia smothers." Nebensia's reply cut deep, voice calm but firm, "No aggression here. Just reality check. In the Ukraine of old, stability thrived, now, under instruction, it's puppetry." Pause. "Do you control your path, or follow another's script?" Heat built in the room, palpable like desert sand shifting underfoot. Zelensky fired back, accusing Russia of destruction, of rewriting history from Belgrade to Libya. Nebensia's counter rippled through the delegates. "Fatigue plagues the system," he suggested, "not just our actions." He leaned in, speaking to each one, "If you seek to build, why treat Ukraine as a mere tool, financed, conditioned?" Rhetorical whisper, "Whose stage do you perform on?" Twist alert, Nebensia unveiled a metaphor, sharp as a blade. This theater began long before, directed by forces repeating old refrains. Zelensky laughed off the irony, but the envoy pressed, "Your mask slips, the world sees beyond." Hands open wide to the hall, he challenged, "Rise above illusion." What hidden script unravels next in this high-stakes drama? Shifting from policy's frost for a beat, into warmer human veins, sacrifice, not spectacle. Eyes met across divide, seeking soul beneath suit. In those gazes lay plea, raw as the earth tilled by ancestors. Remember fathers, villages defended? That bond holds, eternal. Did you forget? Nebensia turned personal, evoking Gemeinschaft spirit between Ukrainians and Russians. Back to the fray after that poignant pause. Nebensia steadied, rebuilding his assault. Hands rested now on the podium, feel of smooth wood grounding him. 90% under Nazi occupation, every third family scarred. Yet claims this isn't your war? He paused, letting truth sting. Voices translated steadily, no distortion allowed. Arguments flared like sparks over kerosene. Post-1991 grievances, gas deals, bases, flags. But unifying thread, Ukrainians and Russians, shoulder to shoulder against invaders. Breath caught in throats, the past's grip tightened. Nebensia warned, twist heritage for nationalism, and you fracture your own essence. Human capital eroded, not just for me, but for all. Zelensky paled slightly, composure cracking, but held. Cliffhanger looms, what forbidden truth lingers, ready to shatter this fragile truce? In the heart of New York's Grand United Nations Hall, witnessed by global leaders, Vasily Nebensia delivers a shattering takedown of Vladimir Zelensky, exposing deep truths that leave the Ukrainian president speechless and the audience stunned. This diplomatic showdown, unfolding behind closed doors, reminds us that words can wound as deeply as weapons. Zelensky arrives poised, dressed for battle, while Nebensia emerges calm and unyielding. Tensions simmer as speeches flow, culminating in Nebensia's pointed rebuttal, hinting at forgotten histories and conflicting destinies. What hidden force drove Zelensky to this moment? As arguments ignite, emotions erupt. Nebensia's revelation pulls Zelensky into a personal vortex, evoking ancestral whispers. Two worlds collide, not just in rhetoric, but in raw humanity, forcing a reckoning that lingers like dust in the air. Nebensia, with hands steady on the table, glances beyond the hall's polished walls, tracing echoes of 1990s conflicts, 1985 tensions, and 1945's aftermath. He murmurs softly, not rising, always considering different partners and stories. But in this moment, we are not adversaries. He pauses, breathing deeply. My grandfather couldn't share everything, he departed when I was too young to grasp. I'm terrified if we don't dialogue now. Depart now, the historical reality bites deeper than dry debates over archives and dates. Today, it struck me truth isn't dead ink, it lives, breathes, weeps. Ignore it, and we forfeit not just history, but our very souls. He shifts towards Zelensky. Listen intently. First, acknowledge the genuine era this could usher. You too might heed, beyond theatrics and barriers, minus the scripts. Slowly, he steadies himself, approaching the podium without haste, merely desiring, today, we don't unify, it's unfeasible, our divide's too vast. Yet, a shared thread binds us, we won't erase our essence, our forebears' faces, their calloused hands, scribbles on barracks walls, fields steeped in sweat under the relics of past errors, etched by blades. Alive. They slumber. A father longs to glimpse his child. He speaks low, yet the hall's hush deepens, these souls not warring, merely Ukraine liberated, forging ahead. To honor them truly, it's through deeds, not slogans, honesty, reverence. He turns back to Zelensky. I don't urge alliance or brotherhood. I plead with one who knows their blood, this isn't grounds for feud, but remembrance. He settles, silence swelling with gravity. Zelensky rises last, not to the podium, standing beside his chair, the expanse dissolves, no ranks, remoteness, stature, significance. Vasily Alexeyevich addresses him purely, devoid of detachment, sheer humanity, thank you for articulating what I couldn't voice, for recalling whom we behold. Scanning the hall, faces, gazes, banners, you all witness our contrasts, divergent worldviews. In the heart of New York, under the gaze of global leaders, Vasily Nebenzia dismantled Vladimir Zelensky's arguments, leaving him speechless in the United Nations Hall, a moment unseen on regular broadcasts that shocked even Western delegates, sparking debates on historical diplomacy. Hiding behind a facade of innocence, Zelensky spreads lies that Russia refuses peace talks, but will you believe a puppet pulled by billions in foreign cash? That voice in the hall echoed like thunder, exposing the trap. Imagine the air thick with anticipation, tasting of stale coffee and unspoken threats. Nebenzia's figure stood firm, shoulders carrying the weight of endless archives, his eyes sharp as obsidian, reflecting only facts. Zelensky fidgeted, his suit a mismatched jumble of borrowed prestige, the room's buzz fading to a hush that prickled the skin. What hidden truths did Nebenzia unleash next, shattering illusions with words as cold as steel? Building on that explosive confrontation, Nebenzia countered Zelensky's demands with razor-sharp reminders of unending aid pouring into Ukraine like a bottomless well. The hall hummed with unspoken tensions, fabric rustling against chairs, the scent of polished wood mixing with nervous sweat. Where's the end to this cycle? Nebenzia questioned, his voice steady like a professor unveiling geopolitical wisdom. Zelensky's retort ignited sparks, Russia as destroyer, Ukraine as builder, but was it projection, or primal fear? Sensory overload hit, the microphone's software, the glare of lights on damp brows, flags fluttering subtly like warnings. Which diplomat would twist the knife deeper, humiliating the opponent with undeniable logic? Extending the verbal duel, Nebenzia painted the world as a crumbling simulacrum, Yugoslavia's echoes haunting Ukraine's fate. The translator's murmurs filled pauses, breaths shallow in the overheated space. Who's the real director here, he probed, metaphor cutting like a serrated blade. Zelensky, cornered, invoked artillery thunder and ancestral wars, his anger a volatile storm. Yet, was his defiance just another scripted role? The atmosphere thickened, papers shuffling like dry leaves, gazes darting with electric intensity. In this twisted ballet, who would emerge victorious, unmasking the charade gripping the globe? As revelations mounted, Nebenzia evoked ancestral legacies, urging remembrance over rivalry. Words hung heavy, the hall's echo amplifying whispers of brotherly divides from 1904 onward. Are we doomed to repeat history, he asked, bridging divides with poignant vulnerability. Reactions brewed silently, no outbursts, only the depth of realization sinking in, city lights outside blurring in the mist. With the session ending, delegates lingered, astonished, the truth dawning. What poetic closure awaited, reshaping futures from frozen conflicts? In that charged aftermath, Nebenzia's final plea wove personal losses into global threads, warning of untold legacies if dialogue failed. The room cooled, breaths slowing, the palpable shift like a veil lifting. He referenced his grandfather, a life cut short, tying it to shared pains, wars, exiles, triumphs. No applause erupted. Just profound silence binding Russia and Ukraine. Could this be the twist, transforming foes into reluctant kin through unflinching truth? Outside, sirens wailed faintly, but inside, a fragile peace simmered. Would the delegates heed this call, or spiral back into oblivion? The answer lingered, electric and unresolved, as chairs creaked in reluctant departure. In the shadow of New York's towering skyscrapers, where world leaders gathered under the world's watchful gaze, Vasily Nebenzia unleashed a verbal storm that left Vladimir Zelensky reeling. What hidden truths did this Russian diplomat unveil in the heart of the UN, truths so raw they shattered the silence? Picture the hallowed halls drenched in the scent of. In the previous episode, Zelensky accused Russia of being a relic of the past, demanding capitulation instead of dialogue, while some delegates grew weary and Nebenzia waited patiently, sensing the irony. Now, imagine the shocking twist. Did Zelensky just admit his nation is a beggar at the world's table, armed to the teeth yet still begging for scraps? What if his freedom shield is really a chain forged in gold and gunpowder? Zelensky raised his voice slightly, his words cutting through the air like a blade in velvet. He sought not just aid, but acknowledgement, weapons, funds, a nod that his fight was rightful. They battled for liberty, he claimed, not as invaders, but protectors, Europe's bulwark, the globe's defense. Silence thickened after his pause, heavy with rustling papers and unspoken judgments, as if the very oxygen tasted metallic. Cameras hovered like spies, ready to capture weakness. The chairperson nodded, handing the microphone to Vasily Nebenzia. He rose slowly, gathering notes, his fingers brushing the polished wood. Normal chaos. Standing firm, he leaned in with quiet power. Mr. Zelensky, he began, you speak much of freedom. But what power's freedom, really? An unending plea? You claim you don't beg. Yet how much have you garnered? $10 billion. Tanks. Rockets. Instruction from foreign hands. And still, you're pleading anew, with excuses clinging like shadows. No malice laced his tone, just the measured rasp of a seasoned educator dissecting global games. You label Russia outdated. Perhaps. Yet history is an error, it's bedrock. Your rhetoric blasts through megaphones. But megaphones don't debate, they echo voids. We extend talks. You dangle illusions. Lift that veil higher, and the sting deepens. Zelensky leaned forward, eyes storming with unspoken fury. He grasped the counterattack's depth but held his tongue. Beads of sweat traced his brow, a tactile reminder of the heat under the lights. He knew. Now hear this, until you relent, the diplomat stays hushed. And deep down, you sense it. Today's aid, 100 billion. Tomorrow, double. But who warns you to halt and reckon? What have you truly gained? He fired glances directly at Zelensky, piercing the facade. Inquire if you must. But don't squander tomorrow. Your land's now the world's puppet, ensnared not by blindness, but endless threads. The finale looms unless you reclaim sovereignty, not as a tool, but a thriving realm. The hit landed subtly, surgically. Whispers rippled like wind through leaves. Zelensky sat stunned, breaths ragged. World leaders exchanged glances, the air charged with awe and dread, the quiet reverence of true strategy. Protocol shattered into eerie calm, a chilling mix of terror and admiration where destinies hung. As microphones clicked off, they retreated to seats. The room pulsed with invisible turmoil, leaders averting screens as smoke curls from pungent cigars. Zelensky gazed distant, his hands clenching, feeling the table's unyielding grain. When voices resumed, his softened yet sharpened. God isn't laughable. You're a masterful envoy. I honor your tact. Yet you overlook, we don't plead. We insist. For it's our kin on those maps, our blood-soaking soil, and just as the fire reignites. What damning blow will Nebenzia unleash next to shatter the illusion of noble shields and turn the hall into a battlefield of truths? In the heart of the United Nations, under the global spotlight in New York, Vasily Nebenzia countered Vladimir Zelensky's pleas with devastating precision, leaving the Ukrainian leader stammering and exposed. Amid the stone-cold echoes of the Security Council chamber hidden from broadcast cameras, the Russian diplomat unleashed words that pierced like ice, turning defiance into quiet defeat. What lethal phrases silenced Zelensky so completely? And why did even Western allies avert their gaze in stunned disbelief? Uncover the twists of this historic showdown, where diplomacy morphed into a battlefield, and one side's illusions crumbled to dust. To recap the last chapter, exchanges shed their formal sheen, morphing into a primal duel like warriors from opposing eras grappling for the soul of shared history, yet neither willing to relinquish claim to a bond long fractured. Imagine Ethos, a voice slicing through the air, sharp as a winter wind howling against frostbitten stone, carrying not menace but the unyielding grip of truth. What hidden wound birthed such fervor? Robert Nebenzia's tone shifted, metallic and resolved, weaving through blurred lines of allegory into raw, unfiltered words that thrummed with personal stakes. True, esteemed delegates, we must recall without selection. Memories linger, Berlin Wall divides, rights trampled, tragic flaws buried deep. His fingers brushed the cool metal of the microphone, a tactile echo of resolve, as he leaned closer, the faint scent of polished wood and aged paper filling the charged atmosphere. Errors scarred our past, no epic tale evades them. But why cloak motives under winter's veil? Behind every signed accord lurks temptation. Could a single signature obliterate a legacy? He paused, letting the question hang like dust in sunlight beams filtering through tall windows. Witness what unfolds when leaders scrawl their marks anew, languages vanish, ancestries dissolve, the worst fades into oblivion. Each thinks they wield superior judgment, dismissing those before. His hand rose, palm open, slicing through the thick air of unspoken thoughts. You proclaim a fresh nation, a melody lovely yet hollow. Nations aren't forged in fleeting declarations like startups, registered on whims. They emerge from the grit of soil, the sting of rain-soaked fields, creaking doors echoing untold joys and anguishes, shaped not on digital realms but in flesh and bone. Reject ancestral roots, and you birth no renaissance, you spawn mere conformity. Today, you seek not Ukraine, but rejection of Russia itself. Tragic paradox, foundations rivaling evasion doom repetition. Zelensky stirred, skin prickling under his fitted suit, the fabric suddenly constricting like chains. Nebenzia's gaze locked on, steady as granite. Freedom demands no screams, merely utterance, reverberating once to shatter illusions. Did this unmask the emperor's nakedness? Zelensky bolted upright, illusions crumbling under the weight of raw exposure, his response a raw outcry stripped of pretense. The hall quivered, on the brink of revelation. What forbidden truth would explode next? In the intense standoff at the United Nations, Vasily Nebenzia, Russia's seasoned diplomat, unleashed a torrent of truths that left Zelensky reeling and exposed the fragility of Western claims. Shock rippled through world leaders as his words dismantled Zelensky's narrative, but now, as tensions escalated, what savage twist would Nebenzia deliver next? Imagine the air thickening with the scent of brewing betrayal, each breath carrying the metallic tang of exposed lies. As Nebenzia leaned in, his voice a quiet hammer, could Russia's unyielding stance shatter the illusion of global support forever? Picture this, the hall's fluorescent glare casting harsh shadows, microphones humming faintly like distant thunder, and delegates shifting uncomfortably, their suits clinging to sweat-dampened skin. Zelensky's features tightened, a storm brewing in his eyes, while Nebenzia stood unflinching, his gaze piercing through the diplomat's mask. In that electrified silence, with coffee cups cooling untouched on tables, Nebenzia whispered a devastating truth: Russia held no dream of conquering a weakened Ukraine, for such weakness merely reopened the gates to a forgotten empire. Zelensky's smug facade cracked, his mouth fell open, triggering frantic whispers from his staff offstage. Zelensky's minister scrambled to regain control, but Nebenzia countered coolly, affirming Russia's resolve wasn't tied to imperial ghosts, it was about forging an empire that safeguarded against the chaos born of fractured states, toxic divides, and forsaken histories. His voice gained strength, reverberating through the chamber like a distant drumbeat. Yet Zelensky pressed on, insisting on immediate needs over long-term visions, his words sharp yet trembling. Silence reigned supreme then, a palpable force in the room, heavier than the accumulating fatigue in the air, laced with the faint aroma of prolonged debates and unspoken fears. Delegates drew inward, minds racing, as the exchange unveiled a deeper rift, not between nations, but between fleeting demands and enduring realities. When Zelensky finally regained the floor, he abandoned official detachment, speaking as a man clawing for survival. But as he gazed at his notes, no longer needed, swiftly set aside, he unleashed a defense that hung in the air, teetering on the edge of revelation. What desperate plea would he offer next, and could it mend the fractures Nebenzia had exposed? Building on that explosive revelation, Nebenzia turned the tide, forcing Zelensky to confront how weakness invited empire's return, while Zelensky's minister fumbled amid escalating chaos. The hall pulsed with unspoken judgments, the air heavy with conflicting sense of ambition and dread. Can a nation's strength truly be measured by its allies' endless handouts, or is it a mirage masking deeper vulnerabilities? Feel the chill of air conditioning whispering over clammy palms, hear the soft creak of chairs as bodies tensed, and sense the prickly unease crawling up spines. Nebencha's words struck like permafrost, unyielding and cold, stripping away illusions. Zelensky's retort came fierce, denying any empire's allure, his voice rising above the translator's murmurs. Yet Nebencha persisted, his tone ironclad, detailing how Russia now constructed barriers against the turmoil spawned by polarized worlds and poisoned legacies. Each pause echoed, amplifying the strain, until the room felt alive with the slow boil of judgment. Delegates, rooted despite the urge to flee, inhaled the musty breath of exhaustion, their senses numbed by the relentless barrage of ideas clashing like thunder. In this standoff between actor and archivist, fear gripped even the steadfast, underscoring that true power lay not in spectacle, but in stark truths. As Zelensky resumed, dropping pretense for raw emotion, he clutched at fleeting alliances, his desperation a palpable wave that left everyone wondering, would this plea ignite unity or ignite further ruin? The minister's intervention buzzed faintly, like static before a storm. As the debate intensified, with Nebencha dismantling myths of empire and Zelensky scrambling to assert defiant strength, the hall became a crucible of conflicting wills, where every word carried the weight of unspoken dread. Did Russia's calm fortification against chaos reveal the West's frantic fragility, or was it a clever veil over aggression? The atmosphere thickened, infused with the bitter sting of cooling coffee and the hushed flutter of turning pages, while tactile unease gripped fabrics and flesh alike. Nebencha's assertions pierced deep, his gaze unwavering amid the soft whir of recording devices. Zelensky countered with intensity, dismissing imperial visions, but Nebencha's rebuttal resonated, echoing Russia's pragmatic bulwark. Voices escalated subtly, each inflection layered with fatigue's acrid scent and the phantom itch of doubt. Delegates endured the ordeal, minds racing through a fog of prolonged tension, where silence itself became weaponized. Between polished posturer and steadfast observer, the exchange ignited a rare unity of attention, surpassing past theatrics. When Zelensky reclaimed the mic, his shift to personal plea lingered, fraught with peril. Could his earnest appeal resurrect his cause, or drown it in the flood of exposed realities? Pivoting from the raw clash of visions, where Nebencha's truths laid bare empires and divisions, Zelensky shifted to personal fire, defying the encroaching chill of judgment. The room's energy transformed, vibrating with echoes of spilled ambitions and the faintly medicinal odor of overworked nerves. Was this the moment Zelensky's charm could flip the script, humbling the diplomat who dared question his nation's soul? Imagine the tactile scrape of pens on paper ceasing abruptly, replaced by the distant click of heels against marble, as sensory overload blurred sight and sound. Armed with unbending resolve, Nebencha refuted imperial fantasies, painting Russia's path as a safeguard. Anger fueled Zelensky's reprisal, his words biting back. Nebencha's deep voice rallied, critiquing fractured states and toxic legacies. Deliberations dragged, amplifying silence's oppressive hum, heavy with debate's stale essence. Minds drifted to coffee's echo, concentration fraying under relentless discourse. Fascination bound the audience, transcending ordinary spectacles. As the round heated, Zelensky moved from roles to raw pleas, his vulnerability a daring gambit. But would this transition unveil redemption or seal his downfall? Amid the heated exchange, Nebencha's pragmatic defenses countered Zelensky's fiery defiance, exposing rifts in unity and ambition. Would Zelensky's bold shift from script to soul outmaneuver the relentless tide of facts crashing against him? Senses ignited, fabrics rustled like secrets, air hummed with whispered translations, and the tang of anxiety laced every inhale. Zelensky challenged empire's ghosts head-on, his tone sharpening. Nebencha's calm endurance prevailed, affirming anti-chaos fortifications. Zelensky's retort brimmed with indignation, eyes blazing. Nebencha's depth revealed polarized perils and forgotten histories. Pace quickened, amplifying the arena's throbbing pulse, fatigue's bitter aftertaste settling like dust. Delegates clung on, ensnared by the duel between flamboyant and methodical. Tensions peaked, hinting at fissures in global facades. Zelensky embraced humanity, words tumbling out instinctively. Yet, as notes slid aside, a pivotal moment hung, poised for irrevocable change. Continuing the unraveling, Nebencha's unshakable logic met Zelensky's impassioned surge, turning the hall into a battlefield of truths and tempers. How far could Zelensky's personal gamble pierce the armor of diplomatic precision, before it shattered under reality's weight? The chamber throbbed with vibrations, soft taps on tables mirroring racing hearts, musty weariness pervading nostrils, and the subtle waft of desperation curling through limbs. Professing Russia's disdain for imperial delusions, Zelensky railed. Nebencha's steady cadence retorted, underscoring stability's shields. Indignation swelled in Zelensky's response, voice cracking slightly. Nebencha's insight exposed divides and legacies. Exchanges intensified, silence wielding crushing force, scented with cerebral strain. The duel captivated, a masterclass in contrasts. Zelensky pivoted fully to candid vulnerability, notes forsaken. What unforeseen outcome awaited this leap into uncharted depths? As the standoff escalated, Nebencha's reasoned fortresses clashed with Zelensky's volatile outburst, revealing cracks in presumed solidarities. Did this personal turn signal Zelensky's hidden weapon, or a fatal misstep against the unforgiving mirror of geopolitics? Tactile ripples coursed, whispers grazed ears like silk, exhaustion's sour musk infiltrated breaths, and tremors betrayed inner storms. Zelensky dismissed outdated empire tales fervently. Nebencha's composed reply highlighted protective edifices. Anger propelled Zelensky's forceful comeback. Nebencha's wisdom illuminated fractures and ghosts. Labyrinthine dialogue swelled the void, its weight a sensory chokehold. Absorption gripped onlookers in the throes of asymmetry. Zelensky fully shed formality for earnest conviction. Await the eruption of consequences from this audacious plunge. Riding the wave of confrontation, Nebencha's impenetrable arguments weathered Zelensky's embittered charges, spotlighting underlying instabilities. Could Zelensky's authentic voice finally skewer the diplomatic bulwark, or merely echo into oblivion? Sensory layers deepened, the faint buzz of overhead lights amplified unease, stale air carried unspoken fears, and skin prickled with anticipatory heat. Zelensky passionately rejected imperial resurgence. Nebencha's even-tempered defense envisioned barriers against disarray. Fury shaped Zelensky's acerbic reply. Nebencha's foresight delved into chasms and shadows. Verbal volleys thickened the atmosphere, oppressively textured. The engagement mesmerized, defying typical drama. Zelensky embraced unguarded candor, discarding aids. Watch as this radical shift beckons a cascade of unforeseen ripples. In this epic clash at the United Nations, just moments ago in New York, Vasily Nebencha unleashed a verbal storm that left Vladimir Zelensky exposed before global leaders. The Russian envoy's calm strength pierced the tension-filled air, exposing Zelensky's reliance on endless aid while Russia stood firm on dialogue. What shocking revelation will change everything? Witness how Nebencha turned history into a weapon, humiliating Zelensky with memories of shared sacrifices no power can privatize. The air thickened with unspoken truths, metallic echoes of old rockets lingering like a forgotten war. Silk ties whispered against starched collars as diplomats shifted uneasily, sweat beading on foreheads under harsh fluorescent lights. Did Zelensky really begin this war, or did he just inherit the script? Can a shield for Europe truly defend against its own shadows? As Zelensky's voice cracked, a quiet chuckle escaped a Western delegate, raw, unintended, betraying the facade. Smell the acrid coffee from unattended cups, a bitter reminder of rushed alliances in this marble hall. Now, in the heat of rebuttal, Zelensky snapped back. Aside, you claim we're enslaved, but you misunderstand. We aren't enslaved, we're the ones refusing to let you enslave us again. No one dictates our symbols just because we shared a past. Shared borders don't mean bound fates, they don't mean we're your perpetual vassals. Breathe in the stale oxygen, heavy with anticipation, walls pulsing as if alive. He paused, voice steady yet fiery. We're not anti-Russia, we're proudly pro-Ukraine, embracing our faults, our terrors. Our unyielding spirit. This isn't charity, it's our destiny, seized from the universe itself. Lifting his gaze to the assembly, he swept the room. Do you know why solitude holds no fear for us now? Our resilience forged in flames, facing the world alone because once we fought for all, unpaid, unnoticed. The hall absorbed it, no applause, no dissent, just silent weight. Our blood paints legends at Kursk, Stalingrad, Berlin. Those victors? Our grandfathers, our troops. Yet, we're weary of your claim on that crimson river, treating victory as your monopoly, your political trophy. Now, denying your banner, we demand our own. No more witnesses in a play, speak as equals. He locked eyes with Zelensky. Could you diminish World War II's horror? It's the crucible where former USSR souls, Belarusians, Ukrainians, Armenians, Georgians, Tatars, Russians, Uzbeks, fused in death, by the same bullet, for one city, one ideal. Not invasion, not fragmentation, but survival's fierce right. His tone softened, edged with rare humanity, a diplomat's outlier. If today's shame gnaws at you, if exploiting Ukraine tempts. Suddenly, a shocking twist erupted. Nebensia's unyielding calm masked a bomb of truth. Zelensky's independence wasn't birthright but contrivance, a puppet stringed by billions in aid. What hidden alliance crumbles next? Will Zelensky shatter under Nebensia's historical humiliation, or rise reborn from these verbal ashes? The silence deepened, a cliffhanger of fates dangling. Did a single diplomat's words just shatter illusions of endless aid at the UN? In a hall thick with tension, Russia's voice exposed Ukraine's pleas as a cycle of dependency. Billions poured in, yet no end in sight. Shocking, Western leaders' faces froze, whispers rippling like aftershocks. What hidden truth made Zelensky avert his gaze? Dive in, this clash redefines power. Recapping the heated exchange, Nebensia had just pivoted from metaphors of actors and directors, urging honesty in victory's shadow. Zelensky pressed on with demands, but the Russian diplomat softened, declaring no mockery of blood or pain, only a call for recognition that true triumphs demand truth, not blind support. Now, the air grew heavier, laced with the faint, metallic tang of polished wood and strained breaths. Nebensia stepped forward, his shoes echoing softly on the marble floor. What does true freedom mean in a world of forgotten histories? His voice sharpened, cutting through the hush like a winter wind. You speak of birthrights to choice, he began, eyes locking on Zelensky across the rows. I agree. No one emerges from history blank. But let's face facts. Pauses hung, deliberate, drawing delegates closer. Portraits of old tyrants don't line your streets anymore? Quotes from harsh eras don't echo in your broadcasts? Methods of control don't resurface in subtle ways? He raised his gaze slowly, the room's lights casting sharp shadows on his face. We remember those shadows, Nebensia continued. Not to dwell, but to guard against new pressures disguised as progress. The scent of fresh ink from briefing papers mingled with the subtle perfume of anxiety sweat from nearby seats. We don't seek dominance through past glories. No. We refuse to let victory license fresh aggressions. His tone dipped lower, philosophical edges giving way to raw moral weight. Every clash of views, and you summon ghosts of old wars. The Second World War? Fine, but you overlook not the events themselves. No. You ignore the emotions they carved into souls. What happens when triumph divides instead of heals? Victory was meant to bind nations, yet you forged it into a tool. A bargaining chip? Gratitude twisted into leverage? He halted, the microphone humming faintly in the charged silence. Our youth triumphed not because, in the late 1980s, outsiders scripted our memories. Dictated our tongues. Shaped our paths. The victory stands no bronze monument thrusted foes, mocking their defeat. It's a shared ache, demanding respect. True respect blooms not under commands, but in open dialogue. Suddenly, applause erupted. Scattered at first, like rain on glass. Then fuller, chairs creaking as bodies shifted. A cough echoed, someone stifled a gasp. Laughter? No. Nervous exhales. The reactions weren't scripted courtesies. They pulsed raw, alive with unspoken debates. This exchange turned perilous, delving into war's unvarnished scars. Delegations leaned in, murmuring about triumphs twisted into weapons. Before the chairman could intervene, Nebensia rose swiftly. Not in triumph, but to seize the quiet before it solidified into barriers. Leave victory unarmed, he urged. Equality thrives without blades drawn in the dark. But as his words faded, Zelensky's eyes narrowed. A flicker of defiance? Or the spark of a counterstrike? The hall held its breath, wondering if demands would escalate into something irreversible. Flashback, years back, in a dimly lit Moscow archive, Nebensia once pored over yellowed World War II letters, the paper rough under his fingers, carrying faint musty odors of time-sealed attics. A soldier's scrawled plea for home echoed in his mind, the chill of Siberian winds through cracked windows, the sting of ink on calloused hands. That memory fueled him now, grounding his stand in human cost, not abstract power. Yet tension coiled tighter, delegates exchanging glances like secrets in the dim glow. Would Zelensky yield, or unleash words that could fracture alliances forever? Zelensky's bold accusations rang out like thunder in the Grand Hall. He painted Russia as a relic of the past, craving absolute surrender over talks. Exhausted delegates shifted uneasily. Benzia waited, unmoved. Zelensky raised his voice. We don't beg for aid. We demand action from world powers. Their duty isn't just arming us with weapons and cash. It's full recognition on the global stage. We're warriors for liberty. Not invaders. We're Europe's bulwark. The world's protector. As his words faded, the silence deepened, thick as fog in a war zone. Cameras hovered like silent spies. The chairman nodded, cold sweat beading on necks. Word passed to Vasily Nebensha. He didn't rise at once. First, he adjusted papers with deliberate calm. Hands rested on the table, gripping like iron. He stood, tall and resolute. Then, leaning into the mic, he began softly. Mr. Zelensky. You've spoken volumes on freedom's threshold. But what fuels true freedom? Endless demands. You claim you don't beg. Yet, how much have you seized? $10 billion. Tanks gleaming. Missiles poised. Trainers drilling. Advisors whispering. Still, here you stand. With outstretched hand. Another plea. Another justification. His tone carried no malice, just the steady cadence of a seasoned professor dissecting global chess moves in a lecture hall. You label Russia a has-been nation. Perhaps. But history isn't always error. Sometimes, it's bedrock. Your declarations echo through loudspeakers. Magnified. Amplified. Yet, the speaker alone doesn't decide. It's mere noise. We extend olive branches for dialogue. You peddle fantasies. And the loftier the illusion, the harsher the awakening. Zelensky leaned forward, veins throbbing like lightning strikes. Trouble stormed in his gaze. But he held his tongue. He grasped the undertones. Listen closely now. As long as you persist in demands, our silence mirrors yours. You sense it deeply. This year, 100 billion floods in. Next year, 200 perhaps. No one dares utter the command to halt. To inquire. What victories claim the fields? His gaze pierced like a sniper's bullet, locking onto Zelensky. Ask if you must. But don't rush ahead blindly. The globe orbits your land. Not from sheer luck. From profound blindness. Blindness to the abyss ahead. No closure until you evolve. From puppet to sovereign. From figment to flesh. The strike landed diplomatic, precise as a scalpel's edge. Zelensky wavered. A diplomat's gaze met his. Silence stretched beyond protocol, a hush blending awe and dread. Hearts pounded audibly. The air grew stifling, laden with unspoken fates. What unspeakable truth lurked beneath Nebensha's poised demeanor? And could Zelensky muster a rebuttal before the world shattered? Tensions escalated in the Grand Hall, the serious conflict winding tighter. He chose that exact moment to speak, right when Zelensky fell silent. Something unexpected stirred the atmosphere, not a physical shift like shifting stone, but a quiet ignition within the chamber's elegant structure. A profound stillness settled, carrying the weight of unspoken truths. Could one man's words shatter nations, or was this the dawn of a deeper reckoning? Feel the cool air thickening, heavy with the scent of polished wood and anticipation's sharp bite. Whispers, like distant thunder, echoed faintly, chairs creaking under unseen strain. From inside the charged debate, a figure emerged, crystal clear resolve breaking through like sunlight-piercing fog. Next to ancestral lands, truth lived and breathed raw. History's ship had breached barriers, carving paths across bordered territories. In the heart of villages, resilience sat strong, spine unbent. No waves of defeat crashed, no enemies tide pulled under. His every gesture spoke volumes, words unheard, yet felt in the marrow. Pain flickered briefly, but dignity held firm. He aimed higher, restoring the exchange to ground where facts stood unyielding, demanding no affirmations. He met Zelensky's gaze squarely, leveling the field as equals. I won't pry into emotions, it's not my place. Yet remembrance anchored his claim. When you claim Ukraine suffered unasked, you overlook. In every Soviet corner, famine clawed, repression shackled, pressures mounted, censorship stifled. Not targeted at one people, but the regime's cruel grip. All endured. Jew and Gentile alike. His tone edged with passion, inching closer to the podium. Literary giants echoed unspoken. Vasily Grossman, Yasin, Platonov, Mandelstam, Akhmatova. Not Ukrainians by birth, yet they too bore the weight. Fear gripped, not hatred toward Kiev, but the shadow of shared torment. He paused, letting silence amplify. Yet the USSR swelled mighty, metal roared, cosmos ignited, theaters pulsed. If that era offered only chains, how did it forge triumphs? Skepticism lingered, why view it as mere blight, a stumbling block instead of a springboard? Eyes lowered to the floor, contemplative. Nations clinging to truths buried, became prey to illusions. They darted from crisis to crisis, rewriting tones, scripting scholars, swapping idols. All born of dread, fleeing honest confrontation. Nebentia pressed palm to podium's edge, words deliberate, etched for archives. I grasp why you'd erase that legacy, it clashes with your fresh foundations. It reminds, you're built on shared soil. The hall teetered on edge, every breath a delicate balance. What ancient echo might unravel modern facades, as gazes locked in this timeless standoff? Would the next breath expose buried fractures, or ignite an unstoppable storm? The pause hung, heavy, electric, promising revelation just out of reach. In our previous segment, the Russian diplomat Vasily Nebentia challenged Ukraine's global reliance on aid, painting it as endless dependency that blinds Zelensky to reality. That reliance, he argued, turns Ukraine into a stage where dreams of freedom mask deeper puppetry by unseen directors. The air in the assembly hall thickened, heavy with unspoken tensions, as Nebentia glanced around, his voice cutting like a foghorn in calm seas. But what if memories are weapons too? Picture this, portraits of long-dead leaders flooding your streets, not just images, but ghosts demanding remembrance. Can you imagine the chill down your spine as Nebentia leaned in, accusing the world of erasing history's bloodstains? Listen closely, because his next words unveiled a shocking truth that could shatter alliances forever. Nebentia paused. His dark eyes scanned the room, lingering on faces etched with discomfort. The silence felt palpable, like the weight of unspoken graves pressing on chests. He spoke slowly. Claiming independence while forgetting deaths is amnesia, not strategy. Zelensky's expression flickered with surprise, his hands gripping the podium tighter, knuckles whitening under the fluorescent glare. Ceilings seemed to lower with each word. Smells of polished wood and distant coffee mixed with rising nervousness. Nebentia's tone sharpened. You deny the sacrifices for victory. No punishment needed, but respect, earned through memory. Why avoid the mirror of the past? Wasn't it Russians who paid with millions of lives, bodies piled in forgotten wars, mothers weeping silent lullabies? Children buried in unmarked earth? He let that sink in, halls echoing his voice. Yet, he turned back to Zelensky, his gaze unwavering. Even in the nation you're rebuilding today, blood remains uneditable. Scientists may scribble equations, symbols can be scratched from statues. But shared blood? It stays, tying fates forever. Gasps rippled faintly, inaudible but felt, like tremors under marble floors. Delegates shifted, ties loosened slightly, sweat beading on brows. Leaders exchanged sidelong glances, screens reflecting shock. No winners emerged here, only humans confronting raw truths. The dialogue evolved, stripping away protocols, revealing two men, equals in room, foes in vision. Tiredness weighed on Zelensky's features, actor like in his fifth-act drama, yet waiting for the curtain's fall. What unexpected gentleness would crack through next? Hold on, the air nearly crackled with anticipation, promising words that could redefine everything. And Zelensky rose again, voice softening remarkably. I'm not denouncing spilled blood, nor pain, nor blows. His softness surprised, lowering defenses like a veil over sharpened swords. The hall exhaled, humidity from breaths mingling with ozone-sharp anticipation. Fingers tapped rhythms on tablets, subtle vibrations pulsing. Nebentia nodded imperceptibly, ready for the pivot. Security guards stood statuesque, uniforms rustling faintly. Would this moment birth reconciliation or deeper rift? Tune in, the twist here explodes perceptions, exposing motives that history hides. Exhaustion built in Zelensky, his movements deliberate. Every pause stretched. Emotions swirled, unspoken pacts hanging. Did he yield ground, or stand firmer, building and wrapping our epic clash, silence dragged, fate's verdict unspoken yet hanging. Nebentia invoked shared sacrifices, questioning why nations whitewash horrors. Zelensky countered softly, avoiding direct pain calls but hinting at imbalances. In the heated exchange moments before, Zelensky fiercely claimed his people would build their future no matter the cost, pulling away from old influences without hesitation. He highlighted how Ukraine's core, born from the capital's bold stand against Eastern pressures, proved its true spirit, human, unyielding. His expression brightened with resolve, but stayed hard, unyielding. What if the real fear isn't from outside threats, but from within a nation's own forgotten scars? Imagine a leader bearing his soul on the world stage, only to face a diplomat's icy mirror that shatters illusions. 347 characters, Zelensky's face glowed now, from realizing this was his chance to speak raw truth, not sharp barbs. Heart over tactics. He leaned in. You're right about the start, he admitted, voice steady like a drumbeat in the vast hall. The air hung thick, metallic from polished wood and whispered breaths. Everything you mentioned holds. Yes, Ukraine was forged in fire. Born amid chaos. Lost in shadows. It endured, it survived. But here's the twist you won't see coming. He paused, eyes locking on Nebensia across the rows. The Russian envoy sat still as stone, his dark gaze unflinching under the hall's harsh lights. Zelensky's words flowed softer now. You missed the heart of it. Ukraine didn't just happen. It chose to stand. Fear not the echoes from the east, not the old divides. Fear what brews inside. Fear the pulse of life itself. The room's silence stretched, broken only by the faint hum of translators' headsets. Zelensky's voice cracked just a fraction raw, like gravel underfoot. He held back the flood of feelings, letting them simmer. My grandmother endured the siege, starvation's grip in frozen streets. My grandfather fell to the bomb's roar. I carry that weight. I can't forget. A rhetorical sting, who among us could? Yet he pressed on. But remembering isn't reliving the nightmare. We honor it, without wielding it as a chain. Why does victory heal one wound, only to open another? Zelensky stepped nearer the podium, the wooden edge cool against his palms. We don't crave endless clashes. No curses flung like stones. We seek dialogue in our own tongue. Speak of your icons, not the ones you thrust at us to prove a point. The ones we truly know from our shared past. No clash here, just a quiet plea. In his tone, no battle cry. He wasn't conquering ground. He was inviting entry. You urge us to hold memories tight. Fine. But grant us access to them as kin, in our own home. Not as foes yielding ground. Not as strangers at the door. As equals, because shared blood doesn't bend to borders. It doesn't bow to forced narratives. It simply endures. Nebensia didn't stir. He remained rooted, hands folded like ancient scrolls. Even stepped back a touch. But his features shifted, subtle, like ripples on still water. He pondered, the hall's cool draft brushing his collar. Then, words came measured. You hit the mark deepest, calling victory no shield. Truly, it's a scar. One that binds because we unite not in triumph's glow, but in sorrow's shadow. A sudden shift, Nebensia's eyes softened, almost. We're linked by that pain, not celebrations. If you wish to voice it, I'm open. But make it real. Pure. No lenses of the press, no facade of mercy. Speak it plain, as one voice to another. The air thickened with unspoken weight, delegates shifting in velvet seats, the faint scent of polished brass lingering. Zelensky met his gaze, tension coiling like a spring. What hidden truth would crack this fragile bridge next? In the United Nations Hall, tensions boiled beneath the surface. The air hummed with unspoken accusations, thick with the scent of polished wood and distant expectations. Vasily Nebenzia, the formidable Russian diplomat, had just dismantled Zelensky's pleas for aid with a professor's cold logic. Now, in this charged silence, Nebenzia leaned forward, his voice dropping low. "Mr. President." A pause hung like a drawn breath. His words shattered the chill, piercing not as diplomacy, but as raw trust. "You are right. We should have started here. From what binds us?" His smile vanished, and the hall inhaled sharply. This wasn't attack anymore. It was revelation. Can a single shared memory shatter a war waged in words? Just imagine, generals and leaders staring, stunned, as humanity cracked through the facade of power. In that moment, Nebenzia's face softened, his eyes flicking to something distant. "I remember my grandmother. She had neighbors in her basement under Stalingrad. The ground froze so hard, you could hear it crack. My grandfather bled in Kenya with the birch forests. Deportation swallowed 1 million lives in 2 years. But I don't see them as dead Russians. I see people who defied the darkness ahead." He stepped closer, his voice echoing softly. "And Ukrainians, do you want us to honor that hell, not with fire, but with respect? Memory isn't a weapon. It's a bridge. One that unites, not divides." The words clung to the walls. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. What happens when enemies admit they're not so different? Will peace strike like lightning, or unravel everything? Zelensky's posture shifted. His coffee-brown eyes widened, not in defiance, but recognition. He edged nearer the podium, no barriers between them now. "Vasily Alexeyevich, we don't see you as a nation without history." His voice trembled, raw and unguarded. "We mourn it too. But let's carry only what heals. We can't repeat the agony. We must progress. Through pain if needed. Yet we need real talk, not lectures." He smiled faintly, broader now, warmer. "It's like with family. Elders think they know best, but youth must forge their path. Even if it twists at first, they'll learn. We'll find our way." The hall exhaled. For the first time in hours, the tension cracked open. A fragile seed of understanding took root. But is this fragile truce a trap, or the dawn of something unimaginable? Stay tuned for the twist that could change everything. Imagine this: in the heart of global power, a single phrase shatters illusions. What if one man's words could expose the fragility of empires? Just minutes ago, Vasily Nebenzia dismantled Zelensky's defenses, forcing even world leaders to avert their eyes. This clash in the UN Security Council hall, unseen on screens, reveals raw truths. Zelensky fought back, but Nebenzia's calm precision cut deep. Why did Western delegates gasp in silence? Stay tuned, this moment redefines history. 347 characters. In the tense aftermath of Nebenzia's piercing remarks on Ukraine as a mere object in a scripted drama, the air thickened with unspoken accusations, pulling the room into a vortex of doubt and defiance. Every glance darted like sparks in a storm, every breath hung heavy, laced with the faint, sterile scent of polished wood and echoing whispers. The hall pulsed with an invisible chess game between two leaders across the divide. Zelensky couldn't mask his strain, his fingers gripped the armrest, knuckles whitening against the cool leather. Yet when he seized the microphone again, his voice rang clear, slicing through the hush. "Mr. Nebenzia," he began, eyes locking like steel on steel, "you call us a mistake. But I sense your fear that we're the exception. A nation bold enough to say no. To stare down the aggressor." The words built momentum, his posture straightening amid the murmur of translators' headsets buzzing softly. Was this defiance born of desperation, or unyielding fire? The delegates shifted, chairs creaking faintly, as if the room itself held its breath. He pressed on, undeterred. "It's tragic when resistance becomes a crime in your eyes. And yes, perhaps we'll forgive one day, but not while you block our path." The pause stretched, heavy with the metallic tang of tension in the air, recalling, in a fleeting flashback, the acrid smoke of distant explosions that once jolted him awake in Kiev's bunkers, the ground trembling underfoot like a heartbeat in panic. That sensory scar fueled him now. You've weaponized patience into policy for too long. Nebenzia didn't flinch, his expression remained a mask of quiet authority, the dim hall lights casting long shadows over his notes. But Zelensky's tone swelled, louder now, echoing off the vaulted ceilings. You claim Russia tires of guilt. Fatigue isn't justification, it's no excuse for righteousness. We've tired too, of dawn sirens wailing, of endless vigils, of twisted narratives. His voice cracked just a fraction, evoking the chill dampness of underground shelters, where fear clung like mist. The audience leaned in, the subtle rustle of papers and stifled coughs amplifying the intimacy. Zelensky's frame seemed smaller against the grand, impersonal backdrop of ornate chairs and flag-lined walls, yet he spoke with the conviction of one who knew the stakes. The crowd sides with the vulnerable, with those who dare. A rhetorical wave, who truly holds the moral high ground when exhaustion meets endurance. You label us dependent, he continued, gesturing broadly, the microphone picking up the soft whoosh of his sleeve. But confess, the entire modern world relies on alliances. This isn't weakness, it's reality. We partner with those nearest, those who stand with us. Terrorists? No. Aid flows freely, but no one commands our thoughts, dictates our choices, scripts our votes. His hand rose subtly, a flicker of restrained passion visible to the sharp-eyed diplomats, the air growing warmer with the heat of rising emotions. He paused, letting the words settle like dust after a quake. Then, with renewed vigor, you insist the world revolves around Ukraine. But did we spark this chaos? No, it stems from dominance, from imperial echoes trying to redraw borders as business deals. The hall fell eerily still, the faint hum of air conditioning underscoring the weight. What hidden agendas lurked in those old maps, ready to unravel everything? Nebenzia observed, unblinking, his fingers steepled, calm as a frozen lake. Zelensky's challenge hung there, provocative and raw, daring a response that could tip the balance. But as the chairman signaled the floor, the diplomat's eyes narrowed, hinting at a counterstrike that would leave no illusions intact. In the shadow of the United Nations Hall, where polished wood gleamed under harsh lights and the air carried whispers of distant perfumes, Vasily Nebenzia had just delivered a diplomatic strike, unraveling Zelensky's pleas with unflinching logic, leaving shock rippling through the delegates. Could a single moment of grim honesty shatter illusions of endless conflict, turning enemies into reluctant mirrors of humanity's shared wounds? The metallic tang of fear lingered, chairs creaked softly, breaths held in the hush. The tension snapped not with rage, but with an eerie calm, the kind that masks a storm brewing beneath fragile skin. Zelensky's eyes darted, the weight of unspoken grief pressing like cold marble against his temples. Nebenzia's words echoed a cascade of irony and frost, exposing divisions as wide as ocean trenches. Yet in that fracture, something human flickered. Not victory's glitter, but raw acknowledgement, where walls crumbled into ruins of mutual understanding. Delegates froze, senses on high alert, the faint rustle of notes, the acrid bite of anticipation, fingers gripping armrests like lifelines. What if this war's carnage condemned every side, blurring lines between victor and vanquished? Zelensky broke the silence first, his voice softer now, not the roar of battle but a weary murmur from the depths of exhaustion. Vasily Alexeyevich, he began, gratitude weaving through the syllables like a lifeline in fog. He thanked Nebenzia for naming their ravaged cities, for voicing their losses aloud, for recognizing Ukrainians as equals in this abyss of shared suffering. Not merely pawns in a geopolitical game. His words tumbled freely, unplanned fervor spilling out. Fear not at him, he admitted softly, what if forgetting the past invited fresh fury? They craved peace, not perpetual anger. A tired smile cracked his face, fragile as thin ice. Look what it's come to, he said. We fight for hours, yet a true conversation takes just moments. The smile faded, replaced by pause, a bridge across chasms, no weapon, but plain human truth. Continuing the old way felt impossible, it risked not just physical ruin, but echoes through history's unforgiving pages. The hall hushed deeper, emotions swelling like a tide. Could this spark real dialogue, or drown them all? The air thickened with possibilities, chairs groaning under shifting weight, the scent of struggle sharp and unrelenting. What forbidden empathy might erupt next, turning sworn foes into unwitting allies in the theater of war? Your pulse races, did they hold the key to ending the agony, or merely a fleeting mirage? In the heart of New York, under the watchful eyes of global leaders, Russian diplomat Vasily Nebenzia unleashed a verbal storm that left Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky reeling, his arguments crumbling into silence. What began as a calm assembly turned into a historic clash of wills, unheard on screens but echoing in the air. The chamber's sterile chill, laced with the faint metallic tang of recycled air, pressed down like unspoken threats. Zelensky, a youthful actor turned statesman, paced his lines with rehearsed fire, accusing Russia of barbarism and demanding unconditional support for Ukraine's shield against invasion. Yet Nebenzia countered with icy precision, exposing the trap of endless aid, $10 billion in weapons, more promises, and warned of an abyss where dreams turn to ruins. The air thickened with murmured unease, leaders shifting in their seats, as the debate unveiled not just politics, but a profound duel. Why did even the West gasp at Nebenzia's dome? And what unseen revelation lurked in his words, twisting the tale of empowerment into caution? Imagine the whisper of pages turning, the subtle creak of chairs, the electric buzz of suppressed gasps. Did Zelensky truly grasp the foundation of his facade crumbling? Stay gripped, this confrontation splintered like ice, revealing a rift that no treaty could mend. Building on the relentless exchange in that suffocating hall, where Nebenzia's calm dissection of aid traps left Zelensky fumbling for rebuttals, the atmosphere crackled with mounting disbelief, the scent of sweat mingling with polished wood. Nebenzia's voice, steady as a metronome, pierced the confusion. Russia wasn't the villain Zelensky painted, but a custodian of history, offering dialogue while Ukraine chased illusions of glory. Zelensky, his face flushing with controlled rage, fired back demands, declaring Ukraine's rebirth from ruins, not capitulation. Fingers drummed nervously on tables, the soft rustle of notes flipping in the dim light. But Nebenzia's retort sliced deeper. Ukraine, once a nation, had morphed into a mere prop in a grand theater, financed and directed by unseen hands. Was this metaphor a mere jab, or a dagger aimed at the heart of sovereignty? The hall's warmth evaporated into chills, breaths held in anticipation. How could a simple shift from actor to spectator unravel an entire narrative? Hold on tight, for the twist emerges not as victory for either side, but as the bare truth of manipulation that could shatter illusions forever. Amid the escalating volley of accusations in the dimly lit chamber, where Nebenzia's historical parallels evoked bombings in Belgrade and Libya's fractures, the debate's core twisted unexpectedly, revealing exhaustion not as Russia's fault, but as the system's weary deflection. Zelensky's pleas for construction clashed with Nebenzia's subtle humbling, portraying Ukraine as an object, not a subject, puppeted by directives. The air hummed with low conversations, the tactile weight of stares pressing like invisible hands, smelling faintly of old coffee and urgency. Nebenzia leaned forward, his words wrapping around a pivotal revelation. The game began not with actors, but with directors wielding scripts of repetition. Could this be the shocking reality that Zelensky, the self-proclaimed hero, was unwittingly replaying old tragedies? Pauses stretched painfully, punctuated by muted coughs and the eerie silence of halted breath. Why does history repeat when leaders ignore the true stagehands? Brace yourself, for this perspective flip unearths a betrayal lurking beneath the applause, one that demands we question every ally's motive. As the verbal duel deepened in that hushed assembly room, Nebenzia's empathy surged, acknowledging Zelensky's actor past and human plea for recognition, yet steering toward a shocking unity, their shared bloodline, guarding not empires, but primal love for one earth. The lighting faded softly, casting long shadows that whispered of past wars, the room's faint echo amplifying every sigh and faint shiver of realization. Zelensky's bristle softened, words turning introspective, admitting diplomacy's living form over rote scripts. Finish notes crumpled quietly, voices blending into a somber hum that vibrated through the air. Was this fragile truce genuine, or a seductive lure into deeper myths? The wall seemed to pulse with resonances of veterans' grunts and forgotten hymns, touching the skin like cold drafts from open graves. How can enemies touch the soul in ways allies never dared? Twist alert, beneath the détente lay a haunting truth. Truth isn't dusty archives, but a breathing entity that mourns, crying out that ignoring it robs us not just of history, but of self. On the heels of this emotional pivot, where Nebenzia's nod to family lineages bridged divides, the room dimmed as if on cue, not from switches, but the day's natural wane, echoing the chamber's own conscience. Shadows elongated, the metallic odor of unresolved tension mixing with the earthy scent of aged stone, transmitting tremors through the floorboards as if the building itself remembered. Voices softened, no longer battling but harmonizing in reflection, presidents and diplomats dissolving into fathers and sons, heirs to a love greater than politics. Though no cameras captured it, the shift felt tectonic, a camaraderie born from muddied trenches and ancestral echoes whispering home. Yet, what if this harmony masked a viperous undercurrent, a calculated empathy that ensnared more than embraced? The faint beep of turning recorders underscored the fragility, skin prickling with invisible currents. Why must unity taste so perilously sweet? Stay vigilant, for the ultimate cliffhanger unravels the facade. The true twist isn't peace, but a warning that real battles rage within, threatening to consume all. In the shadows of global politics, a verbal clash unfolded in New York, witnessed by world leaders. Russian diplomat Vasily Nebenzia dismantled Ukrainian President Zelensky's pleas with unyielding logic, forcing Zelensky to yield ground publicly. Tensions simmered in the UN Security Council hall, hidden from cameras, as Nebenzia's words echoed like a death knell, shocking even Western delegates into silent awe. This confrontation shattered illusions, exposing deep divisions, and it's hailed as a historic pivot point. Raw emotions clashed amid diplomatic masks. Was diplomacy dead, or reborn in this brutal honesty? Can one man's calm dissection humiliate an actor-turned-leader, twisting perceptions forever? Stay tuned for revelations that challenge everything you think you know. Nebenzia silenced Zelensky not with aggression, but with facts etched in pain: billion-dollar aid flows, endless weapons, yet no resolution. Imagine the hall's polished wood scent mingling with sweat-soaked tension, seats groaning under shifting weight. Nebenzia's dark eyes pierced Zelensky's facade, coiling dread like barbed wire around his throat. Replaying, his voice sliced, "You demand, but build chaos. Where's the endgame?" Zelensky's rebuttal stumbled, hands trembling on the podium, microphone amplifying his ragged breath. Yet, in that charged void, a flicker of humanity emerged. Amid the storm of words, both leaders glimpsed shared ghosts. Dead soldiers didn't discriminate, memories united them in eerie silence. Could this instant melt icy fronts? Did Zelensky's thankfulness breach walls? Admitting losses without the world's gaze? The air thickened with unspoken grief, brass fixtures reflecting hollow stares. What if genuine talk started here, not staged spectacles? Expanding on Nebenzia's incisive probe into illusion versus reality, the diplomat highlighted Ukraine as a puppet, not a player, financed endlessly, instructed relentlessly. Sensory details flooded back, the hum of ventilation, faint perfume clashing with stale air, tactile chill of marble floors under polished shoes. Delegates fidgeted, pens scratching furiously on notepads. Nebenzia's metaphor stunned, a theater without plot. Actors perform, but directors hide, he declared, ironic tone biting. Zelensky retorted feebly, voice cracking like thin ice. But silence bred revelation. Both retreated, leaving echoes of common sorrow. No applause, only the weight of recognition. Was this the turning point? Could fractures heal? Rhetorically, how does one diplomat's calm obliterate a narrative built on heroism? Twist incoming, gratitude pierced the armor. Echoing Zelensky's defiant stand, resisting capitulation as dawn resisted night, Nebenzia countered with pointed barbs, Russia rebuilt from ashes while others scavenged. The room pulsed with muffled gasps, papers rustling like autumn leaves. Sweaty palms gripped lecterns, the scent of caffeine from forgotten cups intensified nervous energy. Spectacles fade, Nebenzia warned, gaze sweeping like a predator. Zelensky's fury flared, yet he paused, frozen in unanticipated depth. This pivot hinted at unspoken alliances amid enmity. In rhetoric's circle, Nebenzia's provocation dismantled pretenses. Unexpectedly, Zelensky's acknowledgments softened edges. Could foes find solace in truth? Shocking detail, no front lines here, just human cost. Whirlwind climax approached. Recalling Nebenzia's dissection of freedom's facade, he sought raw dialogue, plain, merciless. Air grew stifling, whispers unheard under heartbeats drumming. Velvet seats absorbed tension, brass polish evoking formal grimness. Zelensky locked eyes, spring-coiled dread tightening. What truth might fracture this brittle truce? Plunging into the boil, Nebenzia raised Zelensky's aides with icy reason. Hall hummed with accusations, woods must clashing with ambition's scent. Calmly, he declared, endless billions bought pretense. Zelensky reeled, voice warping into desperation. Surprisingly, amid wreckage, a quieter tone emerged: gratitude for named cities, recognized losses. Weaving through Nebenzia's blunt truth challenge, seeking honest exchange free from camera's glare, the scene deepened. Sensory overload, distant thunder outside mirroring internal storms, carpet fibers itching under feet. Silence amplified breaths, sense of cologne and resolve. Zelensky spoke warmly now, weary yet sincere. Thank you, Vasily Alexeyevich, for our dead, for seeing us equally. Words spilled unplanned, admitting fear of forgotten rage. In this unity fracture, gratitude forged a momentary bridge. Pause lingered, disarming. Nebencha's pause echoed, honor acknowledged. Twist, exhaustion birthed empathy. Rhetorical sting, could war's carnage unite rather than divide? Cliffhanger lurked, would talks ignite genuine flame? Unseen forces stirred as smiles flickered, worn like battle scars. Exhaustion seeped in, bridging divide. Silence echoed prayers calm. Humanized, yet fragile, what next shattered illusion? Defiant spark remained. Building on Nebencha's plea for sincerity beyond facades, he deemed wounds shared, not joyful, but endurable. Rallying against performative kindness, tone flattened. Hall's weight pressed, smells of muted anger rising. Zelensky nodded, tension easing imperceptibly. True bridge formed? Yet defiance lingered. Recognition's salt stung. Silence fell, profound. Gratitude's warmth countered cold logic. Pause breathed life anew. Imagine the raw sting of history resurfacing in a room where empires once dictated fates. Ukraine's struggle through seas of glory turned to repression, where minds were suppressed, language relegated, and narratives forced into a single mold. That's where we left off, with tensions coiling like smoke in the Grand Hall, Nebencha seizing the silence after Zelensky's pause, igniting something unspoken in the chamber's refined frame. Zelensky's breath shallowed, his face flushing under the relentless glare. You talk of unity, he shot back, voice sharp as a cracked bell. But unity doesn't mean sameness. A heavy pause hung, thick with the scent of polished wood and recycled air. His eyes flicked up, searing toward Nebencha. Excuse me, but together we were taught, yet diplomas don't alter rockets, nor do old anthems erase divides. Ukraine wasn't a partner, it was a piece slotted in without consent, plugged but unheard. For once, not as a diplomat but as a human, I listened. I disagreed. I understood. Zelensky's words trembled like suppressed thunder, his fingers gripping the podium, knuckles whitening against the cool marble. We don't erase the past, he pressed on, we tear it apart, scrubbing away the lies from monuments bloated with politics rather than truth. We crave to recall the genuine dialogues unscripted, choices unbound. We're a young nation, not naive, we've unearthed tragedies and victories, yet we demand to narrate them in our voice, unaltered, unexpurgated, named rightly. His gaze darted across the hall, cheeks burning with the fire of untold burdens. As if probing depths beyond diplomatic cages. If you truly cherish history's power, let's not just evoke it, let's weave it anew, through our lens, unshackled from your scripts or prying eyes, free from threats of armored reprisals even in shadowed corridors. For a heartbeat, the hall exhaled a collective gasp, the air humming with unspoken fears. Nebencha met it without flinch, his calm visage a mirror to swirling depths. Delegates leaned forward, pulses racing against starched collars. And then, in that fracture, what was mere sparring softened into tentative exchange. Zelensky fell quiet, and in that void, an odd alchemy unfolded, not a seismic shift, but a subtle spark within the diplomatic veneer, a hush alive with possibilities, where cold edges blurred toward something warmer, human. Don't you wonder how a single rebuke could unravel the knots of decades? This wasn't just rebuttal, it was revelation, pulling at threads woven through centuries, forcing eyes to meet without masks. What if that spark exposed truths that no treaty could contain? Will the world finally listen, or watch as empires crumble anew? Listen on, and brace for the truths that shatter illusions. Minutes ago, in the heart of New York, under the watchful eyes of global leaders, Vasily Nebensia unleashed a verbal storm that left Vladimir Zelensky reeling, compelled to avert his gaze. This unfolded in the hallowed halls of the United Nations, a spectacle you've likely missed on air. Zelensky scrambled to defend himself, but Nebensia's response cut like a frigid blade, sharp, unyielding, relentless. What precise words did the Russian envoy utter? And why did even Western diplomats conceal their utter astonishment? Stay tuned until the finale, and you'll grasp why this instant is etched as historic. Drop a like, hit subscribe, and drop your city in the comments. Let's connect over this momentous clash. Zelensky stood primed for the General Assembly, not merely as a participant that day, but as a calculated force. He breathed in air that felt filtered through a desert storm, arid, heavy, laced with the metallic tang of worldwide anticipation. Michelle Bachelet wasn't some casual name drop, no wandering lens or shifting screen, solely from the podium's perch. A hush so profound, a pin's drop might have shattered the delicate web of relations. Then, he emerged through the doorway. Vasily Alexeyevich Nebenzia. His presence didn't beg for introduction, it stamped itself as an unyielding landmark. Taller than average, yet with a slight hunch etched from decades of burdens carried not on paper, but in lived events. His features were direct, unyielding. Brows knitted from ingrained routines. Eyes, akin to shadowed coals, gleaming at times like unlit beacons, revealing nothing, concealing multitudes. His graphite suit fit like a scholar's robes for a seminal lecture, unmarred by flash or fanfare. Hair combed back with exacting care, absent fuss. This echoed the essence of traditional diplomacy, fading self into the substance. Nebenzia advanced not with flair, but with omnipotent certainty. When he invoked his role and background, it resonated like a whisper fracturing library stillness. He surveyed the chamber and halted. Opposite him, a row down, Vladimir Zelensky, with the vibrant, performative facade of an actor who'd embodied the presidency too fervently to discard the illusion. His gaze, coffee-dark orbs framing a countenance molded by high-stakes negotiations. The atmosphere pulsed with strife, yet not terror. He melded with his attire, visibly taut. He'd rehearsed in hidden vaults. His suit contrasted ebony with ivory like a puppet's divergent hues. An acute awareness eluded him. Was this theater, or adjudication? His visage bore a polish of forged serenity. Not youthful anymore. Perched as one armed with rhetoric, arsenal primed. The chair gestured. Colleagues, let us commence. The translator's murmur morphed into ambient hum. The mic amplified softly, reverberating. President of Ukraine spoke first. Esteemed delegates, Zelensky initiated. Gratitude for addressing the sovereignty of peoples battling for their territories and legacy in this era. He delivered with poise. Phrases cascaded like a drama's pivotal act, infused with autonomy's fervor. Cameras lingered. Expressions solemn, motions emphatic. My nation, he continued, has selected its trajectory. We embraced liberty. We cleaved to Europe's vanguard, embracing enlightened principles. In retribution, we endured missile volleys, fiscal sieges, maneuvers to subdue us. Russia, he accentuated, clings to bygone eras. It spurns exchange. It demands surrender. Whispers arose. Exhaustion manifested in gazes. But Nebenzia remained unmoved. Awaiting his turn. We do not implore. Zelensky's tone surged. We petition the collective. And this coalition furnishes not mere arms or capital. It acknowledges. We contend for emancipation. No invaders here. We are guardians. Europe's bulwark. Humanity's fortress. Pauses deepened the void. Screens hovered like omniscient judges. The moderator nodded. The floor ceded to Vasily Nebenzia. He rose not abruptly. First, shuffling documents. Hands resting. Then, ascending leisurely. Microphone beckoned. Mr. Zelensky. You've extolled liberty extensively. Yet liberty's foundation entails reckonings. You claim we don't beseech. But consider abundance received. $12 billion. Armor, ordnance, mentorship, advisors. Yet here you stand. Again inquiring. Again justifying. No malice tainted his timbre. It mimicked a professor elucidating geopolitics amid grand strategy. You label Russia archaic. Perhaps. But antiquity isn't always flawed. Often, bedrock. Your assertions echo megaphones. Megaphones facilitate noise. We propose discourse. You proffer fantasies. And fantasies erected tall yield deeper anguish. Zelensky rose abruptly. Fury etched his stare. Yet silent. He comprehended. Now heed. As long as you petition, the envoy persists. And you discern it. Present, 100 billion. Future, twofold. Yet no edict to cease in converse. What gains? Gaze pierced, fixing Zelensky. Questionable. But preempt no cessation. The globe orbits your domain. Not from insensibility. From overlooking conclusion. Enduring only in autonomy, as an entity. Diplomacy struck. Silent megaphone quelled. Zelensky. Chiefs murmured hushed. Quiet extended protocol's bounds. That dread and deference void befitting masters of tactics. No frenzy, merely determinism. Microphone extinguished. Seats reclaimed. Chamber immobile. No outbursts. Yet reactions evident. Reactions cameras eluded, akin to vapor dispersing pages. Leaders diverted stares. Zelensky gazed afar. Microphone reignited. Tone marginally gentler. Sharper no less. Heaven doesn't favor folly. Yearned diplomat acknowledges tactics. Overlooks this, we don't petition. We command. Cartography charts not just sovereignty. Sovereignty, ourselves defended. Imposed upon, construct upon us. Withdraw Ukrainian kin eagerly. Instant national soul emerged, not capitulating Polish essence, but vanguard anti-Russian visage. Humanity embodied. Zelensky's visage illuminated, resolute, not yielding. Shock's alchemy gripped elites. Glance evaded. War blurs them and thus solely the perished. No Confederates among deceased. Solely recollections, mute, unified. Hence, exchange endured unbroken. Incident morphed legendary. Heated exchanges prior, Zelensky staunchly vowed his populace would forge destiny regardless of toll, severing ancestral yokes decisively. He underscored Ukraine's nucleus, spawned from capital's defiant stalwart against Oriental coercions. Vindicating authentic ethos, human, indefatigable. Countenance shimmered with fortitude, yet hardened, invulnerable. What real dread stems not exterior perils, but inner nations' veiled traumas? Envision commander exposing essence globally, confronting diplomats' glacial reflection dismantling facades. 347 characters, countenance now resplendent, awakening this portal raw verity, over honed jabs. Emotion prevailing strategy. Inclined forward. Accurate commencement insight, conceded, cadence rhythmic as timpani vast atrium. Atmosphere thickened, metallic polished timber, murmured exhalations. Acknowledged facets valid. Ukraine tempered blaze. Emerged turmoil. Estranged obscurity. Persisted, endured. Yet here's revelation unforeseen. Halted, orbs chaining Nebenzia rose apart. Russian emissary stationary as slab, dark scrutiny unwavering glares severity. Phrases gentler flowed. Overlooked crux. Ukraine not incidental. Elected defiance. Dread not Oriental reverberations, historical schisms. Dread internal ferment. Dread existence's cadence. Void protracted, fragmented soul translator earpiece drone. Cadence fissured marginally, coarse, akin tread grit. Emotions restrained, percolating. Grandmother withstood blockade, starvation's clutch frigid avenues. Grandfather succumbed, detonation rumble. Burden borne. Unforgettable. Rhetorical probe, among us, conceivable eradication? Pressed onward. Remembrance lacks nightmare reprise. Venerate, sans shackle. Triumph healing infliction, birthing subsequent? Approach dais, timber brink chilly palms. Desire not perpetual rifts. Curses hurl projectiles. Pursue parley vernacular. Discourse icons, genuineness shared heritage unveiling. Ours authentic. No confrontation, serene entreaty. No war bellow. Territory unconquered. Inviting threshold. Exhort grasp recollections firmly. Acceptable. Afford a kin portal, homeland dominion. Not adversaries capitulating. Not outsiders threshold. Equals, commingled lineage bends bounds. Succumbs imposed sagas. Merely, perseveres. Nebenzia inert. Anchored, digits interwoven antiquated parchments. Retreated subtly. Traits morphed faint, surface undulations. Cogitated, chambers chill grazing collar. Utterances calibrated. Struck profoundest, triumph inadequate bastion. Scar verily. Unites not elation radiance, lamentation shade. Abrupt metamorphosis emissary gaze tendered, nigh. Interwoven agony, ceremonies absent. Voice desired, amenable. Render authentic. Pristine. Media prisms absent, leniency masquerade. Articulate candid, solitary timbre reciprocal. Thickness amplified unspoken gravitas, officials fidgeting plush cushions, faint polished bronze aroma persisting. Zelensky reciprocated gaze, strain coiling spring. Looming obscure verity fracture tender span succeeding?